Today's episode is brought to you by Mazars. SoundCartel. It's hard to make all the big decisions on your own, but your business isn't big enough for a traditional board, and friendly advice on the side may not be enough to guide you into the future. So what can you do? From SoundCartel, I'm Nicole Goodman, and this is Business Essentials Daily. Well, one answer, offered by business coach and leadership expert Alan Rodway, is to create a cluster board, a diverse group of people who'll sit across all your strategies and major decision-making processes. And that means carefully selecting and calling on those with expertise or experience in each of the major facets of business. But Heather Dawson suggests to Alan, many small businesses don't think they can afford such expertise. Wouldn't they have a point?
Yeah, they would have a point. They have a point on two fronts. One, the monetary cost of setting up these cluster boards, and secondly, the time that it takes. They're both costly affairs. But the other side of it, to not have them, is even more costly. The businesses don't run as, this would be an obvious statement, I think, businesses don't run as well if they're not governed well. So to say that it's a bit too expensive financially, and I'll come to that, or a bit too expensive in terms of time-wise, just doesn't wash. What I would suggest in terms of getting around it from a financial perspective, and this is very much sort of in the smaller business space because that would be a valid objection to it, is to actually repay the favour, so that there are many owners and key people in business who can do that, to say, well, I'll sit on your board and you'll sit on mine, and that's not a silly thing to say. It's actually quite easy to do, so that if I hunt you down to say, well, you're expert in media and digital marketing and so on, and that would be a real attribute to have on a governing body for my business, and I'm really good, for example, in strategy and direction for businesses, then we can return the favour, sit on mine and I'll sit on yours. And as long as there's no conflict of interest in doing that, you don't need to pay me, I don't need to pay you in monetary terms, we'll simply return the favour in terms of time.
Now, you've highlighted the attributes and experience that members of a cluster board would bring to the table. So let's go through some of the key areas that you've been talking about. First of all, direction and strategy.
And it would be number one. I mean, a business that doesn't know exactly which path it's trying to follow and how it's going to get there is not going to be very good. I mean, and I've bypassed the sort of what's the whole end game for a business, or that term, what's the vision for the business, but someone who's fairly astute at saying, well, okay, where are we going to, how are we going to get there, and that's direction and strategy would be absolutely critical to this sort of setup.
You also want somebody with expertise or experience, at least, in digital marketing. That's a growth area, isn't it?
Businesses are really lacking this whole digital marketing experience. You sort of talk about social media, and we all know what that is. Very few businesses, in my experience anyway, moving around Australia, are expert in making the most of digital marketing, from social media to sending out EDMs to doing something pretty effective with their website to, you name it. And it's not even one area. I think you'll find 3 or 4 experts within that one area now, as distinct from the traditional forms of marketing around advertising and branding. I think digital marketing is crucial now for this governing body.
And also, along the same lines, but different, technology, experience in technology.
Yeah, no, I think the days of technology enabling a business are gone. That has to be a given, so that your technology will allow your business to run, and you'll have a computer system, you'll have a database, etc., etc. But technology, I think, now has quite a different role on top of that, and it should be overlaid that technology is a driver of the business, so that someone on a cluster board who's quite astute at how do I use technology to drive my business forward? How do I use technology to create automatic flags for events that mightn't be good for the business, or upcoming circumstances that we should try and avoid or make the most of, or whatever. So technology as a driver is important, so therefore that expertise would be necessary, I think.
And overlaid by that, information and data, not to be confused with technology, you say.
Yeah, and I think they're different. I mean, technology can facilitate the flow of information and data into a business, but they're not one and the same. So I think information technology, the term IT, I don't like that, because I actually think they're two different fields now. I think the flow of information to a business could be anything. It could be a flow of information about its customer base. It could be a flow of information about benchmarking. It could be about the market. It could be about new ideas. It could be anything. So this whole information and data arena is something that we should be drawing on to help our businesses move forward successfully, as distinct from technology, which should be enabling us to do that.
Well, we've already got quite a lot of people with expertise in different areas on the board so far. Now, operations, somebody with experience in operations.
Yeah, well, there's not much point in knowing where you're going and how to get there and information technology if you're not going to be efficient and effective at the way the business runs. So operations, it's sort of like the COO role, if you like. So someone who's got that level of expertise who's going to say, well, okay, that could work, but how are we going to make it work effectively and efficiently is a good question.
Financial analysis and innovation?
Financial analysis has been way too much about history, and that's really become a cliche. It's way too much about history. It's not enough about the future. It's not enough about prediction. It's not enough about benchmarking. It's not enough about analysis that will lead us to decisions. So somebody in this cluster board who's got some real expertise in terms of how do we look at the numbers and make them sing? How do we look at the numbers in terms of affecting the decisions we make in the future, as distinct from report on a profit and loss basis and balance sheet and cash flow statements and so on, which you have to do, obviously, but to extrapolate that and dig a bit deeper.
And finally, on your list of people on the cluster board, somebody with experience in performance of people. And Alan, you've deliberately not used the word HR here. So why is that?
I was told by a person who's expert in people and culture, as some of them call it now, not to use the term HR. It's a bit old. That was the main reason. But I think to really highlight that it is about people and performance, and if that's clearly an extremely important part of running a successful business is who your people are, having the right people, and that they are enabled and willing to perform at the highest level. And I don't think the term HR covers that meaning well enough.
Now, Alan, given all these areas of expertise, you'd also advise that everybody's up to date with their expertise or experience. So how do you do that when you're selecting people for the board?
Yeah, okay, I think it has to be tested, and that if you don't know someone that you think you're bringing onto this cluster board, then you would need to be interviewing them and doing some digging to find out whether they are up to date, because you certainly wouldn't want someone coming in to cover a digital marketing area who's, if you like, not up to speed with that. So there'd be an interview process, if you like, and there'd be some digging to be done, as distinct from just saying, yeah, well, you and you in your camp sort of thing.
Well, you're really asking them to invest in your business,
absolutely,
aren't you?
Absolutely. And that's why it either has to be a payment financially. It can't be a favour. It categorically cannot be a favour. It must be a financial payment, or it must be a return in kind of I'll sit on your board, or in some way else, we'll return the favour to you.
Well, for a cluster board to work, the owner would not only have to be open to new ideas, but also prepared to act on them, even if their natural tendency was perhaps to maintain the status quo.
And that's probably the hardest part. It really is, that the owner to, if you like, not give over control, but give over to some influence of some other people. It would be an obvious statement to make that a lot of owners would really struggle with that. It's okay to set up a cluster board. It's okay to sit in a room while people discuss the future of your business. But it's a very difficult thing to then say, well, this is what the majority, if not the whole room, thinks about what we should be doing on this particular issue or this particular opportunity. And I'm going to go ahead with it, buy into it, even if I'm not convinced it's the right way to go. And that would really challenge some owners. But therein lies the value. Because if you can't cross that bridge, then what you're really saying is, well, I'm happy to have conversations with people, but I'm not really happy to take a lot of notice of them to the point of implementing action. So what you're really saying is I'm still going to make all the decisions by myself, which is one of the very reasons why so many privately owned businesses really get themselves into trouble. It's the owner trying to be all things to all people, making all decisions. So you really have to give over to what this board's going to suggest to you.
Okay, well, final question. Is there a bottom line message from you, Alan, in all this discussion about cluster boards?
I think the bottom line message is every business should have a cluster board, and it might meet quarterly. I'd have no problem with that. It might meet quarterly so that you're downgrading the sort of the time. I think you could do some pretty special things in that. I think every business should have it. Find your way through how to set it up. And I think it has to have, apart from what we said before in terms of the diverse personalities, it absolutely has to, we have to get rid of this, and this is not meant to be disrespectful to people like myself who are older males running businesses in Australia. We have to stop that. It has to have the females, and not because to be politically correct, but because they can think differently. Not better nor worse, but they bring a different perspective. So surely we have to have male and female on these. Surely we have to have older and younger. And we absolutely have to have a very young person. And by that I actually mean an 18 to 19-year-old, because they're the ones who will come in and talk about social media with expertise beyond anything that I could ever come up with. And we have to have, surely, people from different cultures, and you might be rotating some people. It starts and stops with, you have to have a group of people to help run your business that's really going to help you take it forward, not just say, I'm all things to all people, and it's all too hard to have a group of people to do that. You have to have a cluster board.
That was business coach and leadership expert, Alan Rodway. This episode of Business Essentials Daily is produced by the team at SoundCartel. Thanks for listening. I'm Nicole Goodman. We'll bring you more Be Daily tomorrow. Follow @BE Daily Podcast across social media and head to bedaily.com.au for more from the Business Essentials Daily podcast. SoundCartel. This episode was brought to you by Mazars. To find out more, visit mazars.com.au. That's mazars.com.au.